Oh, okay. What's going on, folks? We have the Darth Revan lightsaber here, the microphone attached to it. We're evolving. And I just wanted to take a minute and say thank you guys to whoever commented and subscribed and liked the last video. Keep it up, mostly because I like talking to you guys and chatting about books, chatting about stories. We're going to get into a little weekly bookish update. And I'm going to try and not say the word so many times because I feel like I did that a lot last week. Almost did it right there. So let's quickly get into what I'm currently reading, and then we'll do some life updates. We'll do some plans. We'll talk a little about Dungeons and Dragons for a very brief moment. All right, let's talk about Berserk. Let's start where we kind of left off last time. I finished, this is so heavy, it's crazy. This is the volume 3 of the deluxe editions, okay? I finished up to a morning departure, like the morning departure, all those chapters, and we're going to get into spoilers here real quick, okay? For anybody who is reading and following along with Berserk, just know that there are going to be spoilers for the third volume of the Leatherbound, and up to, if you're following by chapter, I'm not really sure. Honestly, if someone can leave in the comments down below, like one of the best ways to go about deciphering and organizing my read of Berserk, that would help. I know that there's probably articles out there, but I prefer conversation. Anyways, let me go ahead and bump into spoilers here for up to the end of the morning departure. In 3, 2, 1, here we go. So, Guts and Griffith, huh? That was freaking awesome. It was badass. I know I say it so much when I'm talking about Guts, but it was badass. He defeats Griffith in a single slash. Doesn't kill him, but you know this is going to go somewhere. You see a little bit of Griffith's volatility. You see Casca's vulnerability. You see Guts's vulnerability slightly, and the rest of the White Hawk. Sorry, excuse me. The band of the White Hawk. Wow, I think I'm saying that wrong for some reason. Simply because I think the name's about to change. And you're seeing all these different depths that these characters have, and it's polarizing. I love it. Loving it so far. I think I have about, I don't know if you can see this, but yay much left, this bottom part here. I think before next week, I'm just going to try and finish this volume because I have 4 right here ready to go. And I'm really thoroughly enjoying it. And my buddy at work who has read all of Berserk and I think watched all the anime has said that what I'm about to get into is awesome. And I don't expect anything less. So I'm going to move on from Berserk talk. We're going to go into the other reads I'm currently having. Let's talk about I'll call it my primary read right now. I'm working on Of War and Ruin. Oh, let's see. I don't know where a good place to have that is. I don't have the physical copy of this book. I'm simply reading it on my Kindle. I'm about 15% in chapter 12. I really started it after I did a marathon, like a sprint of The Way of Adan last week. So I gave myself kind of like a day and a half of just taking off of reading. And I started Of War and Ruin. I'm up to chapter 12 right now. I just got through. I shouldn't have told you where I'm at, but I won't say I just got through. Let's just say that in this book so far, there has been a massive battle, and it was awesome. And it was through the eyes of a character who I think we're supposed to have complex feelings for, who I just, quite frankly, I like. I like reading his perspective. There's also, I think every character perspective so far in this book that I've gotten to, if for those of you who are reading The Bound and the Broken and are following the narrative, I'm trying to think if it's a spoiler to say it. I don't think it should be. Anyways, there's a primary character perspective, let's just say that I didn't particularly enjoy for the first 2 books that I'm already enjoying more in this one. And I think it obviously has to do a little bit with the evolution of the author and how they've grown as a writer. That said, all of the perspectives in this book so far, I'm loving and enjoying. Whereas there were 1 or 2 in Of Darkness and Light where it's not that I wasn't enjoying them, I just wasn't enjoying them as much as the ones I was really enjoying, and that's what I was putting it up against. Everything kind of feels even keel here. I'm really thoroughly enjoying all of the perspectives equally, which is I don't know. I mean, it's a credit to Mr. Ryan Cahill and his writing and his ability. to keep me hooked and engaged. And this story so far of War and Ruin is fabulous. I'm loving it. I'm loving the journey that our characters are on. I don't want to say the names because it is a book 3. There is one character that I really want to talk about, and please leave down in the comments below if mentioning a character's name early in book 3, if that would be a spoiler, so I can go into this next week maybe a little bit more in depth. I am thoroughly enjoying this, and I want to talk more deeply about the character perspectives that are really, really hitting with me. So yes, I am about 15% into Of War and Ruin. I'm flying this weekend, so I plan to get a lot of this done. I can't promise I'll finish it. That said, I do intend to get at least over halfway through this book this weekend, and that's a hope, because I won't be writing this weekend, but we'll get to my writing updates later. I'm about 117 pages into All the Pretty Horses. This is one that I've been picking up and putting down. It's taken me a little longer to read than I would have liked. I really enjoyed The Road. Blood Meridian, I didn't DNF, but I BFN'd, and I don't intend to do that with this book. I am enjoying it. I'll get to some movies that I watched later, actually, this past weekend, because I think that'd be cool to talk about. I like the story of All the Pretty Horses so far. I think I just got to one of the primary parts, like a little mini love story in here. So we'll see where that goes. I enjoy Cormac McCarthy's prose a lot, although I understand people who don't. I get why. It's very, again, polarizing, I think is a good word to put in there for Mr. Cormac McCarthy. Rest in peace. I'm also about into Empire of the Vampire. Folks, we are roughly over 40% done with this puppy. I crushed probably another 150 some odd pages, maybe 200 this past week. After I told you guys I was going to get back into it, I am thoroughly enjoying it. It's very episodic, so it did feel like where I left off, it was a place I could have. And now jumping back in, it feels like we're kind of on another episode. I'm enjoying what's crazy is I cannot remember the main character's name for the life of me when it's time to remember it. So you know what we're going to do. Gabriel De Leon. Okay, yes, because I always mix him up with the person who's interviewing him. Because again, this is told through that framing narrative. I understand how popular this book is and how probably so far behind I am, and how everybody has loved and read who has read this book for the most part. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm thoroughly enjoying the prose. Thoroughly enjoying the style. It's very visceral, very real. It feels appropriate in terms of everything that I'm reading. It feels like the characters would and should be saying what they're saying. I should is probably an inappropriate word, but very fantastic book. The world is absolutely fascinating and enthralling. When I am reading this book, the chapters are very short and digestible. So I know you guys see this thick book if you haven't read it, and I don't see how it's so popular. I imagine everybody has, but that happened. Don't be intimidated by the size of the book. The chapters are very simple to read in terms of the length, which I think is kind of an endearing part of this book. It's, again, very episodic, very beautifully written. The prose is seamless. I would use the word seamless to describe those prose. And then I'm going to talk about, that's what I read, right? We got Berserk, War and Ruin, what I'm reading, sorry. Let's talk about what I picked up through the interwebs this week. I picked up Mr. Rando Sando, Words of Radiance. This one I have heard so many fantastic things about. Now, my intention is to read this book before the end of the year. I have it, I'll say, planned out for December. My goal is to finish the Farseer trilogy, the first trilogy of Robin Hobb, by mid-November. And then I'm hoping to pick this up come December. And apparently it's a quick read, even though by the width of this thing, this is a tome. I could hit somebody with this and hurt them. This is going to be one of my more highly anticipated reads. Now, I have only read of Brandon Sanderson's work. Now, I know there's a lot of fans of Brandon Sanderson out there that probably think I don't like Brandon Sanderson when I say this. The only book I've ever read or only ever touched of his is The Way of Kings, right here, okay? And I loved this book. Loved it. I listened to it on audio, and actually the narrator started out a little dry for me. And then I got into it more and more and thoroughly enjoyed it, thoroughly paid attention. It kept me hooked the whole time. Again, the prose are very accessible, and it was actually one of my better reads of the year. I think it was 2023. So it's been a while. It's been long enough. I think it's time for me to dive back into Words of Radiance, which a lot of people say is their favorite book of all time in terms of fantasy, next to books like Storm of Swords, of Song Ice and Fire, which also I haven't read. I know, not that I don't like Game of Thrones. It's another one that I listened to the first one on audio and buy for now the second one, not for any other reason than I just kind of wanted to dive into the Way of Kings at the time. But I do intend to go back to those. So I will be picking up Words of Radiance in December, and I have it here. Now, for October, my goal, this was recommended by Andrew over at Andrew's Wizardly Reads, Horns. He gave Joe Hill a lot of praise, and my intention is, I don't think it's particularly horror. I think it's more thriller. Yeah, supernatural thriller. And for me, as someone who doesn't typically dive into horror, I am picking up Blackwater. That's not just hasn't come in the mail yet. I intend to pick up some of those short stories throughout the month of October. I also intend to read this book by the end of October. I want to start it on October 1st, and I want to finish it by the end of October. We'll see with all these reads how everything pans out, because I still have The Realm of the Underlings. I still have Royal Assassin and Sundered Moon by Mr. Zamar Amer to finish in October. So I kind of have to be realistic. You have to be realistic about these sorts of things. Now, let me also mention that now that I mention it, I'm listening to Red Country by Joe Abercrombie currently. The audiobooks, the narration by Stephen Pacey. I cannot express enough how engaging these audiobooks are, and how so I live in New York and I travel a lot on the subway. And there's a lot of noise. So I will have to, like, it's taking me longer to go through audiobooks than it has in the past, simply just because of all of like the ambient stimulation that's happening in New York City. That said, I think I'm going to have to just like make time while I'm sitting in the apartment, maybe cooking, doing things around the apartment. It's New York City. It's, not very large space. And I think it'd be a good idea for me to listen to the audiobook while I do that, instead of just going out. I used to listen to it first thing in the morning while I'd be showering for work, getting ready for work and things like that. I think I'm going to go back to doing that. I usually go on about a mile walk before work to grab some coffee. So I think I might start re-engaging that more regularly. It's about a few days a week that I do that. But I'm loving Stephen Pacey's narration. And I have listened to Best Served Cold and the middle one. Oh gosh, how can I not remember this right now? The middle of the standalones. You know what it is. And now I'm on Red Country before I get into the Age of Madness trilogy. I read physically the First Law trilogy, and I love the prose so much. I was like, oh, how am I going to be able to enjoy this on Audible? And then, of course, Stephen Pacey, by everybody's recommendation, blew it out of the park. So that's my audiobook read. Now that I went over books that I picked up, books I'm going to be picking up in October, we got my audio read down. Ooh, this past weekend, my girlfriend and I watched 4 what we call grandpa movies. I have tendencies of an older man. I'm only 30, for the record. Let the record reflect. But I do love a good action flick. We watched Sicario. If you haven't seen the film Sicario, directed by Denis Villeneuve and the gentleman who wrote the Yellowstone series, Taylor Sheridan, it's Emily Blunt is a fantastic actor. She's in it. Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin. And there's a greater cast around them, of course. Some other supporting roles that did a fantastic job. That movie is, it's awe-inspiring. The ending is my favorite kind of ending. And if you've seen Sicario, you probably think something's wrong with me. And then my girlfriend loved it so much that we watched the second Sicario immediately after. Now, I told her, I said, hey, people don't like this one as much as the first. Now, to live up to an ending such as they did in the first one, the second one had a very high bar to meet. That said, I did enjoy the second Sicario. I've seen it before. I've seen both Sicarios before, but I was showing my girlfriend. She loved both. She loved both equally, which is probably crazy to hear from people out there who are fans of the films. But I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's a more shared opinion than I think. And then in between that, we watched Logan, which is one of my top 10 movies. I may do a top 10 movie video if you guys want me to, just because I love going into it. Spoiler alert, Lord of the Rings, Dune, and Star Wars are up there. That said, the rest can be kind of a mixed bag. So yeah, we watched Logan. I love that movie. I love the emotional notes it hits. I love the performances of all of the actors in that film. And then we also on Sunday watched No Country for Old Men. Reading Cormac McCarthy. I'm very inspired to watch that film. I didn't know what I was expecting. I think I expected a bit of like a horror film, just with Javier Bardem's aura and essence in that film, how he plays the psychopath like so well. I love that movie. Of course, I think the ending is, it's a Cormac McCarthy ending. That's the best way I can describe it. And I loved it. I loved that movie. Of the movies that we watched over the weekend, obviously Sicario I think is my favorite. I think Logan and that are close to the same. Sicario has a little bit of an edge because just the visceral emotionalness that book hits, and when movie hits, and when he in the second movie he goes adios, and then he like uses his trigger finger to like kill the guy on the street. Oh my god, that was so sick. Sorry, just a rehash. I like completely forgot how awesome that scene was. Sorry, moving on from movies. Let's talk a little bit about D&D. We're getting some dates together. That is the hard. Anybody who has run a D&D session or has been a part of a D&D session knows, especially when there's distance separating the group, the hardest part of getting a D&D session is finding a day and time. So that's what we're working on right now. I don't want to officially announce anybody involved other than Jake over at Nerd Level Rising, of course. But I'll let him do that because it's his thing he organized. I think it makes the most sense once we get it harrowed in exactly on what we're going to be doing. But I'm very excited. I already have an idea of the character I'm going to be running because I want to turn Rage on its head. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Actually, leave in the comments below what you think my D&D class is. Just go ahead. I'm not going to say anything like my favorite D&D class. Let's just say that. And then maybe next week we'll kind of go over a little bit more of that, and also leave your favorite D&D class and tell me why in the comments below. I love to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and if you have other tabletop RPGs that you play that you enjoy, please also leave that in the comments below. I'd love to talk about that. I got my painted mini here, Alavis Lightseeker. If you guys want to know more about Alavis Lightseeker, check out the description because I'm about to go into my writing about the mini blurb that I have because my early D&D games inspired me to write a whole novel. So I'm going to move on from all of those updates. Again, I'm going away this weekend, so my writing is going to be a little wonky. Now that I'm going to get into my writing, again, thank you guys so much for coming. If you were just here for the reading, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, please. I love talking to you guys down in the comments. And then talking about my writing. Okay, we are at 149.5 thousand words. We couldn't get that extra 500 to get to 150 even today. My girlfriend's in Scotland, so we were on the phone. It's not her fault. I don't want it to sound like her fault. I made an active choice, and then I wanted to film this video. But yes, we are at 149.5 thousand, which means that 149,500 words. Last week, I think I was at 140, so that puts me at 9,500 for the week. Over the course of 7 days, I think that's about, for those who are keeping track, roughly 1,400 words per day. Not that that matters at all. I think it's more of just like a line for me to keep track of as I go. And I think looking back at these videos as I draft this first draft of book 2, it'll be interesting for me to see kind of where I was and where my headspace was when writing this portion of the book. I think I'm about 70% of the way done with the book currently, based on my goal word count. I'm not an outliner, for those curious. I am a pantser. I do very much discover write. That said, there was definitely a lot of outlining of the world before I started writing, but of course things changed along the way. I find discovery writing has been the most beneficial for my type of brain, just sitting down, getting in the chair. It's kind of a surreal moment. And I know I'm writing my first book. I didn't document anything other than my writing while I was writing it. And I decided to do these video journals kind of talking about my writing in order to keep better track of it. And also, of course, when book 1 comes out, to announce it to people. Like I want to share the story with people. It's not the whole intent. It's a story I want to see. And imagine you have a story. Imagine you saw your favorite film ever, whatever that may be, or read your favorite book, and you were the only person on earth that read that book or watched that movie or saw that play or read that manga or watched that anime. Imagine you're the only person that's ever, including the people that created it, you were that person that just saw it came out of the blue. That's what I'm doing right now. I want to talk about this story because it is the story I want to read. That's the best way I can explain it. And sharing it with you guys, whoever is out there watching this video, it's one of the most exhilarating feelings I think I could have. And we're getting to a point where I have shared book 1 with people, and I've gotten reader feedback from 7 people who have read the entire story, and it has been so invigorating and inspirational as I'm working on book 2, drafting book 2. It's very cool to see kind of the seeds of what I've been planting in book 1 come out in book 2, and then everything that I'm writing in book 2 and how it's going to affect my revisions of book 1 and before it goes off to the developmental editor. Whew, that was a wave. That said, the scene that I worked on this past week was one that I've been building up to. I had decided, okay, here we go. I said I was going to be reluctant over the last few weeks. It took a lot to get to the scene, the exact moment that needed to happen. It took about probably almost 20,000 words, maybe 17,000 words to get to the point where this thing happened that I was reluctant to have happen. And then yesterday it happened, and I wrote it, and it's done. And of course I can go back and change it. Of course, you're saying you write the story, you can make the choice. Yes. But sometimes the story makes the choices for you. And just like when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you roll those dice. The story is told by what happens, right? You roll the dice and they make the choice, right? And that's kind of how, when I write, I get in that headspace of, okay, if this choice happens and it viscerally affects me and I get an emotional response, to me, that tells me that that's something I need to lean into. And this one It hit very hard. So I'm excited to see the rollout of the first book as we get closer to July. You guys will be hearing more updates in the month of October about the book cover. I will be probably, we just did Talking Story as their town square. So you guys, I'm sure you've come over from there. If not, you're probably already subscribed. So I might do something with my submission. Hopefully next month I'll have a cover that I can put into there for people to see. And then of course I'll talk about it on here. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I rambled a bit too much. I probably forgot something. Oh yes, myself, Chris over at the Bearded Book Beast, and who I'll leave in the description down below, and Jake from Nerd Level Rising are doing a buddy read of a Luthien come November. We've decided to do kind of like a quarterly group. Chris is really heading the name of the group. I am terrible at coming up with names, funny enough, for at least for like groups, like little reading groups. Oh, and also Alex from Iskandaria, which I've been saying so wrong for so long. We're going to have a group of us who are picking up a book in The Last War. I don't know when exactly we decided we were going to do that. I got to figure that out. I think it was November. We'll iron out the details and you guys will hear about it. We have plenty of time before then. Yes. And also I have a live stream with Jake from Nerd Level Rising next Wednesday. He got sick this week, so we had to reschedule. So it's going to be Wednesday, October 3rd. I think that is next Wednesday. So yes, please stay tuned for my posts. I'm going to be putting that up so you guys can have the link for it. If you're not already subscribed to Jake from Nerd Level Rising, what are you doing? He produces way better videos than I do. Please go follow him. He talks great story. He has a great reading taste. If you're into the stuff that we're reading here, and then otherwise, please just go check him out if you haven't already. Jake at Nerd Level Rising, he and I are going to have a live discussion, and it is my first live discussion, and I'm kind of very excited because I haven't done a live discussion with anybody just yet. I'm really looking forward to having a interactive, reactive discussion because I think a lot of this is nice. Like I love talking in the comments, but also those comments like in the live chat, communicating. It's just a very fun thing for me to do. I feel like I'm better off the cuff like that. I'm a very improvisational mind. So it's very fun to just like hang out with a friend, which is really what we're going to be doing Wednesday. So anyways, sorry, this is my second outro. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next Friday.